Um, board members too, I'll introduce myself and then you guys can go ahead. All right, good afternoon. It is 5:03.
Hold on, Judy, we're not quite there yet. Hold on.
Oh, sorry. I was seeing the little sign and I thought I had missed like the cue.
That's okay, no problem. Hold on.
So board members, Pam, you just go after me and each one of you will follow.
Okay, President Hart, we're streaming and we're ready to roll.
All right, thank you very much. It is 5:04 and we are calling this meeting to order. Thank you so very much, everybody who is tuning in right now, and also later on if you happen to be previewing or viewing the recording at a later time. We thank everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Judy Hart, and I'm this year's P-CCS Parent Council President. Thank you all for joining us, and I'd like to introduce my fellow board members. Go ahead, Pam.
Sure. Hi, my name is Pam Cornell Allen, and I am serving as the Vice President for the board.
Our corresponding secretary.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sophia Salim, and I'm the corresponding secretary.
Hello, my name is Andrea Schultz, and I am the membership coordinator.
Thank you very much. My fellow board members and I are very happy to have everyone here. We have a special edition of our meeting tonight. We have a few items on our agenda first. And for those of you who haven't joined us before, our parent P-CCS is a district-wide group, and our focus and our job is to bridge communication between our district and P-CCS families and caregivers, our staff and administration, and community members as well. So we thank you all for joining us. We have just a couple items on our regular agenda before we get to our special Board of Education edition of our Parent Council meeting. We have an approval that our board members will be taking a look at our old minutes, which is actually from May 2020. We had a town hall in May that the minutes have been submitted for board members to take a look at. I'll give everyone just a moment to take a look at the minutes from May 2020. And board members, if you, I'll look for a motion to approve of the old minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. A second piece of business from our last meeting, I had requested that each one of our parent council representatives from each school, each building, respond to the election that was held. The election openings were actually held open since February of 2020. The election was supposed to be held at our April meeting, which was not held at a regular time. So we kept those election positions, both for president, vice president, corresponding secretary, recording secretary, as well as membership coordinator. We kept those positions open until October 5th. And we had an election in which each candidate ran unopposed, and our members from each of our schools had, with a response of yay or nay, approved or disapproved of those results. President was myself, Judy Hart. Vice President was Pam Cornell Allen, Corresponding Secretary Sophia Salim, and Membership Coordinator Andrea Schultz. We had more than a majority approve, actually all in unanimous support, approve those election results. And we are still holding open a position for recording secretary. So if there is if there happens to be someone who is a representative from their school or a frequent attendee who would like to run for recording secretary, we'll leave that position open until we have a response to that or more than one candidate, and we will hold an election at that date. So we would also like to take attendance by asking whether you're watching live or whether you're watching at a later date. If you could please email parentcouncil@pccsk12.com and let us know that you are watching for your school. So if you are an official parent council representative that represents your building, or you happen to be a PTO member who is representing your building, please respond and let us know that you were in attendance and watched this meeting. With that being said, in our November meeting, we will be changing the format up a bit. We're going to go back slightly to our old ways from before the Zoom meetings and things that the pandemic has led us to. What we will be doing is we will still be recording and archiving our meetings for anyone who wants to watch, but we will, for all parent council representatives and PTO members, we will be sending you a link to the Zoom meeting so that you are able to interact and ask questions for any guests that we have from the November meeting on out. And we will still record and archive our meetings from here on out. We just won't be live streaming the meetings as we are tonight. So those changes will be in the future. So again, everyone, thank you very much. With our business being done, we are going to now focus on our reason for calling this special parent council meeting, and that is we are going to focus on bringing our families and caregivers of our P-CCS students a look at many of our P-CCS Board of Education candidates. And we are having a forum tonight, which we are very excited about. We thank them all for being here. For those of you who are looking to gain some information on the election, Parent Council felt that it was incredibly important because many of us are informed on the national elections and up and down the ballot. And I talk to a lot of parents who get to the more local part of our elections to get, down the ballot, and they're a little less informed. And there are sometimes fewer opportunities to get to know our candidates who are running for Board of Education. So we took this opportunity. Normally we're having this forum in person, and we invite everyone to the board office, but tonight via Zoom meeting, we're just going to end our official YouTube channel. We're going to give you that opportunity tonight to get to know everyone. Just a bit of a background, we did contact by email all 12 of the current candidates. Everyone was invited to attend tonight. We gave each candidate an opportunity to submit answers through video, through written form, or if they were able to attend tonight's P-CCS Parent Council meeting. At the time of our meeting, we received responses from 8 of our 12 candidates. And tonight we have several of them live. We also have a few written responses as well as a video. So we thank all of them for all the input, the opportunity to get to know them. And we'll take a look at our candidates now, get to know them a little bit. The very first seat that's coming up for election for our Board of Education, there's actually, when you get to your ballot, I took a look at my ballot today, And there's actually two sections that you will be voting. One is, though all of them are Board of Education candidates, the first seat that you'll be voting on is a partial term candidate, where this term will be ending. It will go from election to December 31st, 22. So this person who is voted in as our candidate, as our elected official, will serve out the rest of this term. It was a 4-year term, and will serve out the rest of that partial term for 2 years. The second section of our Board of Education candidates, there's 3 other seats available, and they are all going to be serving for 6-year terms. So when you see your ballot, you'll kind of see those two sections. I'm going to first have each one of the candidates introduce themselves, and then we will take each of those sections and have them all address questions that were created by our board members and voted on. We each basically had a pool of about 12 questions that we had voted on, and we decided that these 4 were the most important questions for us to ask tonight. So the very first, I will introduce first the Board of Education candidates who will be running for the partial term. Not with us tonight because she had a previous engagement, will be Anupam Chug Sidhu, and I will be giving her written responses. She did respond that she was unavailable, and she did submit written responses. Running also for the partial term tonight is the candidate Sebastian Ostertag. And Sebastian, why don't I have you just introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Sebastian Ostertag. I am running for the partial 2-year seat. And yes, I'm a first-time candidate. I want to make a difference in the community. I want to represent students, and I'm excited to see what happens. So yeah.
Hey, thank you, Sebastian. We have tonight several of our other candidates who are running for the 3 available seats, which are all 6-year term. Lauren Christensen, who did respond to us and let us know that she was also unavailable tonight, but she will have a video response, which we will play just very shortly. Patrick Kehoe, who is an incumbent board member who is currently serving, and his responses will be written and read by our board member, Sophia Salim. Christopher Voss, who is here, and we'll have him introduce himself. Hi, Christopher.
Hi, I'm Christopher Voss. I've lived in Plymouth Canton almost my entire life. I'm running for the 6-year term of the school board, and I'm really excited to be able to give back to P-CCS.
Thank you, Christopher. Next, we have Gina Tebow. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Judy. Thanks for inviting me tonight. My name, for those who don't know me, I'm Gina Tebow. I am running also for the 6-year term. I have lived in Canton for 20 years. I have 2 children who've attended P-CCS schools, a daughter who graduated in 2016, and I have a son who's currently a senior. I've been involved in the district for about 19 years volunteering, and I also have an accounting background. So I'll just keep it short, and we'll have more in the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. We also have Jeannie Moody Novak. Hi, Jeannie. Do you want to just tell us a couple details about yourself? Just introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jeannie Moody Novak, and I've lived in the Canton area for 26 years. I have a son and a daughter who've attended the Plymouth Canton schools. I'm a former trustee of the Canton Library Board, and I'm very thankful for the Parent Council for having us here tonight.
Thank you. And we also have with us tonight Cheryl Picard. And Cheryl, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Cheryl Picard, and I have lived in the district for 34 years. I've had 4 children, a daughter and 3 sons go through P-CCS schools and graduated from beginning to start. And I just volunteered in just about everything. I was on the housing committee, booster clubs for football, lacrosse, different sports. I was a team mom for Steelers, which was a community organization. And then I have attended board meetings. I presented at board meetings. I was at a state board of education meeting. So I've been involved for a long time, and now I have the opportunity to run, and thought I would take that. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right, well, we are going to get right to our questions. Like as I had said, our board members had created and voted on what we thought were the most important questions that parents and caregivers would want to know. So we have 4 questions that we are going to begin with. And as I had said, we're going to begin with the Board of Education candidates who are running for the partial term, which is Anupam Sidhu and Sebastian Ostertag. So given that, Sebastian, you happen to be here, would you like to go first, or would you like to have Anupam's written response read first?
Actually, I prefer if she went first, actually.
Okay. All right, we'll give you that that choice there. So our first question, which I did just so that everyone happens to know, we did share the questions in advance. On Saturday, I emailed each one of the candidates, and we let them know what our questions were. The very first question is, what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be? So Anupam, who also I might include, I'm not sure if I mentioned, she is a currently serving board member. We asked, what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life shows families what kind of board member you would be? And she responded, I'm currently serving as the vice president of the school board. I'm the only board member and candidate that has vast experience in education, administration, curriculum, equity, and policy. I have worked in urban and suburban environments as a teacher. I have been involved with equity work for 10 years. I currently work at Wayne Risa, where we provide a variety of support and services to schools and educators throughout Wayne County. I have taught thousands of students and worked with thousands of educators and administrators to improve educational outcomes. I have led statewide programs to offer free professional learning and resources for students over the past 19 years through local and statewide partnerships. In June, I was appointed by Governor Whitmer to serve on the Return to School Advisory Council to set standards for safely reopening Michigan schools in the middle of the pandemic. Many life challenges have led me to this path of serving students in my community. The challenges of growing up with limited resources, limited support, and being bullied to a path of wanting to serve, led me to a path of wanting to serve and help others. We struggled financially, so I got my first job as a paper route girl at the age of 12. I learned to sew my own clothes because we had limited budget for clothes. I struggled as an immigrant with limited English proficiency and not feeling accepted. What kept me going were the lessons I learned from my dad, who pulled his family out of poverty by continuing his educational journey and working hard. He told us that education was the most important investment we can make. I can empathize with students and families that are experiencing challenges. As a beautiful and vibrant community, we have the opportunity to make things better for all students and create spaces where all students feel welcomed and encouraged. Experience, empathy, visionary leadership, and representation matter in this role where our duty is to serve all students. So that was Anupam's response that she had submitted. Sebastian, I'm also going to ask you, what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be?
Thank you very much. To tell you the truth, I believe that the biggest difference between me and the other candidates has to be the fact of experience. So I grew up in the district. I've been in this district for 13 years. I graduated just a couple of years ago. My dad is an immigrant. He met my mom here at a party, and back in the 90s. And it was actually really cool. He came from France, and when he came here, he barely spoke English and everything. And so, but he met my mom, and my mom, she spoke French. And together, actually, they managed to raise our family, and they found this place. And Plymouth is a place where people look because of the school system. My parents are both educators. They both work in public schools. And I myself, I'm currently taking classes at Schoolcraft Community College, and I'm actually interested in possibly going into becoming a social studies teacher for high school. So I care a lot about education. For me, I would have to say that the biggest experience would be, the biggest difference would be experience. Other people running in this race, they have a lot more policy experience, bureaucratic experience. I have experience with students. I know what students go through. From the very beginning that I've been running, I've always made it clear that I am running for the students number one. Students first. The truth of the matter is that this board that we currently have has not been representing the needs of the students correctly. I am the youngest candidate, which means that I have the best experience when it comes to the school district. I know whether it be mental health issues, whether it be the dangers of gun violence, whether it be bullying and sexual harassment. We've actually seen cases of that happening recently with the student who ended up suing the district because the district didn't do enough to help them deal with the sexual assaults and sexual harassment that was happening. I am running because I want to be able to reach out to those students who need help, because I've seen the problems, and the current board has not addressed the problems efficiently enough. And I believe that we need change on the board. We need to have a student perspective. And I believe that I'm the best candidate to take care of that, because I will go number one for the students. And at the same time, I also care about the teachers who sacrifice so much for us, and the parents who are, in the end, the primary educators. Thank you.
Judy, should I go with question 2? So here's the second question. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that your family's voices are heard? How would you suggest to improve communication and transparency with P-CCS families? So this is for Anupam, right?
Okay, so I will read you, and I do want to remind, I apologize. Sebastian and Nupam both did incredibly well. We are keeping each of our responses within 2 minutes. I apologize, I left that detail out. But here, so for question number 2, Anupam's response is, communication is an area that we need to improve upon, and this is a priority for the board and the administration. In the past 3 months, I have made a few recommendations in board meetings which have helped with this goal, including doing virtual parent forums and involving parents with the decision-making process for school plans. As a board, we need to plan a schedule of events where we can coordinate conversation sessions to make better connections with the community. We will continue to work on this collectively, because one board member can't do this on his or her own. There has to be a majority buy-in with the communications and outreach efforts. We encourage all community members to attend board meetings and committee meetings where so much of our work is discussed. Again, there is room for improvement on getting more participation and better communication.
Okay, so this question is for Sebastian. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? How would you suggest to improve communication and transparency with P-CCS families?
I can tell you this. I have recently, actually, a couple of days ago, I was meeting with some parents, and with one parent specifically. We were talking about, what needs to change on the board. And one thing that they said many times is that the current board is not good at communication. That, they send emails. The parents are sending emails to the board members, but yet there are no real responses. There is nothing that's really being done. And I understand, because the truth of the matter is, when you're a board member, it's not easy to respond to every single email and to be there to always answer the question of the parents. If I'm elected, I can say this: I will not only answer emails, I will also meet with parents. That's something I really care about. I love people. I'm a people person. And if I have the opportunity, I will make sure that I go out of my way to go and meet with parents. and teachers and students, especially students. But for me, it's important because at the end of the day, parents, as I said before, are the first educators. Parents are those people who are the most important when it comes to a child's education. And it's, as a board member, I would be serving the parents. As a public servant, I will take care of making sure that what is best for the students with the recommendation of the parents is done. And that is something I think is very, very important. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to question 3. Okay, and we're going to continue doing the written response first.
Yeah, we'll have.
Okay, all right. So question 3, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district and also public education in general? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board? So we can hear from Anupam first.
Anupam's response is, these are challenging times and we have a few big issues facing our school district. The biggest issue right now is the challenge of opening schools for students safely in the middle of a pandemic as cases continue to rise. Our top priority is the safety and well-being of our students and staff. This is a novel virus and we have to look at the science and data on mitigation strategies while the district tries to meet the variety of the needs of 16,000 students. The biggest issue in public education is inadequate funding for students, particularly students that need additional support, such as our special education students. For example, schools get about 40% of the special education costs reimbursed, which is not fully funding the educational needs of our students. All districts, including charter schools, get the same funding, whether they provide transportation or not. The current state funding model does not take into account the unique needs of our district and our community. We are among the lowest funded districts in the state. So many inequities exist in public education, and we have to come together as a state to figure out better funding models and better policies to support all students, while providing educators with what they need to support student success.
Sebastian, the same question to you, which is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district and public education in general? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
Thank you. I would have to say I agree with Anupam regarding the way that current education funding is done in Michigan. My dad, he works for the Detroit public school system, and he himself has told me, we actually attended a march not too long ago, and we talked about how, it is true that based upon different districts, you will have some districts who need more funding who are not getting the funding. And I think that needs to change. And it starts in Lansing. It starts with our elected officials up in Lansing. The truth of the matter is, unfortunately, as a school board member, I couldn't change that. We don't have the authority. But I want to change what I can change. And for me, I believe from the perspective of a school board member and from the perspective of a student who's been there, the biggest challenge that we need to do, that we need to face, is supporting students through all the different things that happen. Alcoholism, teen pregnancy, abuse, human trafficking even is a very big problem in the area. And I think that these are topics that are not being addressed, but we need to address them very specifically. And for me, one of the reasons I wanted to run is because of the fact that I grew up with many of my friends. I got to meet so many great people in high school, and I saw what they go through. And I myself have gone through things that I wish I didn't have to go through. But life is hard. And I think that we need, as a school district, we need to be there to stand up for the students and to stand up and help them, whether it be with mental health, whether it be with actually providing services that will actually help the students. And just in general, I believe that we have to, most of all, support the students, because at the end of the day, school is about students. Thank you.
Okay. Here's the next question. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts become necessary, what areas would you preserve, and where do you feel cuts could be made? And this is for Anupam, the prepared remarks.
Anupam responded, as a society, we need to invest in the success of all students. Different students need different supports and resources to be successful. So the priority should be in equitably supporting students and teachers with what they need to ensure student success. As a board, we have done a good job with financial stability and balancing the budget, particularly in the middle of a pandemic with budget shortfalls from the state. We have been thoughtful in making investments where they make the most sense with our limited budget. We need better compensation for staff so that we can attract and retain high quality staff members. We need to prioritize social, emotional support, cleaning, safety, technology, and appropriate compensation for our parapros, teachers, cafeteria staff, and others that play a critical role in the success of our students. We have been making cuts in our schools for the past 10 years, and it's time to change the funding model and stop diverting public school dollars to other areas. Cuts that must be made, should be made, with programs that have the least harm on student outcomes. The conversation needs to shift from ongoing cuts to investing in our kids and communities to achieve excellence.
This one's for you, Sebastian. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget if cuts became necessary, what areas would you preserve, and where do you feel cuts could be made?
So I'm going to really be honest about this. I have talked with current teachers, and they have told me that there is a fear that with the budget cuts, that because of the state level and everything, that pretty soon their salaries might go down, that some school programs might be cut. And I want to make something clear. I do not want to cut anything if we don't have to. But if we have to, and this is only if we have to, and this will be worst case scenario, if we have to make serious cuts, I want to preserve the basic, like the fundamentals. Number one, math, science, English, and language in general, foreign language included, and social studies. These are the most important. And that's not to say that other classes are not important. My favorite classes, and I think in many cases, some of the most useful classes, have been classes that are not a part of those fundamentals. But when it comes to college, when it comes to in the real world, we need to have those 4 major core classes. That's why they're called core classes. So I do not want to cut anything. I do not want to cut anything. And I will try to find anything that we can do to not cut the important, to not cut classes. We can cut other things. I'm in support of, if need be, cutting funding for infrastructure if we need to make the budget cuts. But no matter what, we need to remember that at the end, we need to preserve the 4 core fundamentals: math, science, English, language, and social studies. Most important of all.
Thank you. We're going to move on after our first 4 questions that Anupam submitted and Sebastian responded to incredibly well. We thank you guys both for your responses on that. And again, I want to remind our parents, our families, our caregivers at home that Sebastian and Anupam will both be running for the seat that is a 4-year partial term seat. They will be running in order to finish out that seat, which goes from the election in 2020 until 2022. So you're finishing out a 4-year term, which is 2 years left. So thank you very much. We're going to go on to our other candidates at this moment. We're going to ask them the same 4 questions. And these are our candidates who are running for 3 available seats. Each of those seats will be serving out a 6-year term. So if I can, at this time, I'll ask the question number 1. and we will get our video response from Lauren Christensen. The question again was, what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you will be? And this is Lauren Christensen, and here's her response submitted by video.
Okay, so the first question is, what sets you apart from other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be? So I just want to let people know that I'm a lifelong resident of Plymouth Canton. I'm a mother of 2 young children who are just starting out their careers their educational careers at Smith Elementary. I have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader, and I'm a working parent. So I bring a unique set of qualities to the board that I think are missing from our current Board of Education. So as an educational interior designer, I work with multiple stakeholders with differing viewpoints daily. Designers are problem solvers. I work with school boards, administrators, parents, teachers, and staff of school districts all across the state of Michigan and the state of Ohio. So I believe my set of qualities, my ability to listen, to research, to collaborate, communicate, and think on my feet will also serve well on the board. I plan to work hard and collaborate with my fellow board members and superintendent to make informed decisions in the best interest of our students.
So we thank Lauren for submitting that response. And we're going to now go to Sophia Salim, who will be responding for Patrick Kehoe. The question is, what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be?
I've been on the board since 2015 and engaged with the board as a citizen since 2013. My approach to the board is to seek to understand the process and decisions from all viewpoints. I read the materials, prepare thoughtful questions, and try to achieve the best possible outcome for all our stakeholders, students, families, staff, administration, and the community. I expect our board and district to continually do better. We certainly need to celebrate our successes, but we need to reach higher. I am a product of P-CCS and experienced bullying and name calling in school. Then, like now, I don't let that affect my actions or decisions. I will wade into difficult conversations and discussions to try to understand all viewpoints and achieve consensus. In the end, my decisions will be based upon what is best to allow all students to achieve their maximum potential. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask the same question to Christopher Voss. What sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates? What one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be?
Perfect, thank you. So some things that set me apart as other candidates is, I think my age, also like Sebastian, I'm rather young. I graduated from P-CCS in 2016, and I'm so grateful for the amazing education I was able to obtain and for everything that I learned in my time in P-CCS. So one thing that I think will really help with me on the board is I'll be able to bring a perspective that isn't always there. I'll be able to talk like a student, and I'll be able to understand what they're facing, because I think, you know, young people nowadays are facing a lot more challenges than they've faced in the past. And if we have someone on the board who has faced those recently, they'll be able to help board members understand and to collaborate about these issues. I have 8 siblings, I think 6 of which are currently in the district at all levels. So I'll be able to see how things affect them at all different levels. And something in my life that will help people understand the kind of school board member I will be. I actually took 2 years of my life off to serve a mission in Brazil. And in that time, I was able to go to another country and I was able to serve and to help other people. And not only that, I served in many leadership positions in my mission, and I was able to organize training seminars. I was able to organize the missionaries to help them have success. And in my time while I was there, I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to listen. I really think listening is a really important attribute of a leader, someone who's able to listen to others and make decisions based off of what the other people say. So really, I hope to bring that young, unique perspective to the board, and I hope to be able to give back to a district that really gave me everything that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And next we have Gina Tebow, and she's going to respond. What sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates, and what one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be?
I think one of the things there's a few things that set me apart. For one, I have received bipartisan support and received endorsements from many community members. I have received both the congressional and the district awards for my volunteerism. I've been volunteering for 19 years in the district. I have been a substitute parapro. I've been attending school board meetings since 2011. I've been attending school board subcommittee meetings since 2018. I've been a member of Parent Council since 2008, and I've served on the Parent Council board. Right now, I'm a trustee with the Educational Excellence Foundation, and I've been working as a volunteer in the office doing bookkeeping and whatever else is needed for the past 5 years. I had a hard time coming up with one experience from my life. I think what will show families I'd be a good board member is the past 19 years of volunteering. I have been an advocate of the district, teachers, staff, and students. Will show people what kind of board member I'd be. I have volunteered and supported every building in the district, and I continue to do so, whether personally or through my work with the EEF. In fact, tomorrow I'm lucky enough to be going and delivering some of the donations of the whiteboards for kindergarten to second graders, so at all the elementary schools. I have been a member of the PSEP improvement team, this district improvement stakeholder team, and over the summer, I stepped up, and our executive director of the EEF, she was put on furlough, and I handled the running of the office every day, along with doing my regular volunteer work of bookkeeping and the financial reporting. So these are a few things. I've always just stepped up wherever there was a need for the past 19 years in the district. And I think that shows people my commitment and dedication to the district. Thanks.
Thank you, Gina. We now have Jeannie Moody Novak. And my question to you is the same. What sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates, and what one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be?
So I feel my background and upbringing set me apart. I grew up in Flint. I was a first-generation college student, graduated from the University of Michigan. And this taught me how real the struggle for education is for some students. My husband and I attended high school together, and we both knew that we needed to leave Flint in order to find a great future full of opportunities for our family. I feel like I've had two distinct careers in my life. I worked more than a decade in private banking, trust, and investments at PNC Bank in Ann Arbor while my daughter was growing up. And after my son was born, I returned to work, but at the University of Michigan, fundraising for scholarships and working with students. The first scholarship that crossed my desk was from a donor who lived out west. He created a scholarship for students who aged out of foster care. The first time we met, he told me what he had learned about foster care students, that a scholarship's not enough to help this population of students succeed, as only 2.5% of foster care students go on to graduate from a four-year college, compared to 24% of the general population. With this information, I left that meeting, and over the next 2 years, I created a robust program at the University of Michigan to assist former foster care students. The first year, we served 5 students. Now, more than 14 years later, the program supports 48 students annually with financial support and personal, social, and emotional programming and support services. I'm a change maker and a servant leader. When I see a need, I'm the person who'll do the research and the work to make improvements. My motto has always been, it only takes one person to make a difference.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. And our last response to the same question, Cheryl Picard, will respond to what sets you apart from the other Board of Education candidates and what one experience from your life could show families what kind of board member you would be.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have been in the district for 34 years, and I've had 4 children go through, 4 different children. They all had different personalities, so I did experience many different families, different events, different activities, different types of education, different classes, different levels of classes, and also just the different applications to colleges, just that preparation and what was important. And actually did find out what was actually really important to go to college. So that, and the other thing, because they are all graduated and just one has one more semester left of school, of college, I do have a lot of time. So I think that might be something different. I have a lot of time during the day. I'm assistant preschool teacher, just part-time. And I have availability during the day and evening. And so that could be something I might be able to offer more. And then what sets me apart, because I did have a lot of kids going through and seeing a lot of different things. One of my sons had a very close friend, and I saw how, we say one person can make a difference, or different programs in the school. What I saw was that somebody can have a lot of availability, a lot of opportunities, a lot of support, and still have trouble getting through. I think the core is family support, like deep down from home. Some of the values and things that are said at the beginning, early in life. I see that it's not always the opportunity, the things that are there that draw kids in. I think one of the problems that we have in schools is that we promote kids who aren't really ready to be promoted, or we're not certain. I mean, they get to move up with grades that probably should be improved before they can move ahead, which then sets them further behind other students. I think that causes a lot of frustration. There is competition, whether we like it or not. And even just look at our district with charter schools, there's competition. And we need to be able to have kids feel that they can conquer something in some area that they're doing well. And I just think that the school did a great job, as far as the people involved trying to support this one person, but there's got to be a desire deep in, and I don't know how to fix that. I think that is an issue in a lot of kids right now, and I would like to be able to help with that, and to maybe just be an open voice for parents that are struggling with that. Even families that have lots of things do experience that also. So I don't think it's necessarily has to do with race and all these other things. I think it's just our society in general. That's why that is a particular thing in my heart that I would like to help with. So that's why one of the reasons I'm running.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. We are going to go with question number 2. And I just wanted to give the candidates a heads up just to keep things fair and rotate the order. We will have question 2, which will be followed Lauren Christensen's video response, Patrick Kehoe's written response, and then we're going to move up the order. We'll have Gina continue, Jeannie, Cheryl, and then we'll allow Chris to go last for this question number 2, and we'll keep rotating in that order to keep things fair. Okay. All right, Sophia.
Okay, so this question is for Lauren Christensen. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? What suggestions do you have to improve communication and transparency with P-CCS families?
Second question, as a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices were heard? How would you suggest to improve communication with P-CCS families and transparency? So, I think the uncertainty of the pandemic and return to school has heightened parent engagement at board meetings and within community discussions. I'd love to see this community engagement continue. How do we harness that passion and involvement, maybe by creating a parent advocacy group to connect with lawmakers, to really advocate on behalf of public education. But even on another level, I think, we have the ability to listen to our community through citizens' comments on board meetings, but I think we need another forum or another avenue in which to truly listen to our community. So I think, monthly community engagement sessions are so important because they are the stakeholders in all of this. They know what's best for their children, and certainly, we want to continue to improve upon the communication, listen to our parents, and make informed decisions, even based on their input. And I think, that's part of the frustration, even currently right now with parents, when I start to talk to parents of young kids, just the unknown, and I think if they felt that they were heard, we would be able to progress and make some really great decisions and change for P-CCS.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Patrick Kehoe. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? What suggestions do you have to improve communication and transparency with P-CCS families? And I'm going to read his written response. Our district has struggled to provide succinct, contextually aware communications, especially during the times of crisis. We need to do better. We need to do a better job of proactively explaining the recommendations, choices, and decisions that inform our messaging and communications, so that our families and community are not left with more questions than answers. I realize that this is often an artifact of moving too quickly, but we need to step back and review each communication from the perspective of the audience. While we have district-managed social media sites, the most robust conversations are occurring in the non-district managed discussions. This is much like the conversations that would be had in the town square and grocery stores in the past. We need to provide more informal mechanisms to participate and communicate in those discussions while still providing a consistent message and voice for the district. I know that this is difficult and hard work, but believe that we are up to the task. Lastly, we need more collaboration and workshops to bring the discussion and decision-making into the light so that all stakeholders can provide input and have awareness and transparency in the process. So now my question is for Gina Thibault. And the question is, as a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? How would you suggest to improve communication with P-CCS families and transparency?
One of the ways is I think I would continue doing what I've been doing for years, talking to parents and to be involved at the various schools. Even now, after my kids have been out of elementary and middle school, I still reach out to community members at the different schools and staff, and I talk to them and find out what's going on and if they need any support. I think another thing that would be helpful is if we had community workshops, have different community groups, different cultures, talk to the board, talk to the district, so we understand issues and problems that they may be encountering and will like to share with us. I think with our communication, the methods that we receive information needs to be consistent, and we have to know where we can find it and how we're going to receive it. Our website should be updated a little bit more. The calendar events, we should be implementing it and using it, so you can go in and see what's going to happen every day in October. I also think it's important to get the information in a timely manner. One thing I think we really need to work hard on is making sure that everybody is receiving any district emails. I know personally, I don't always receive emails, and I find out information on Facebook groups. And I think this is really an issue that we shouldn't be finding out information first on Facebook before, or if we don't receive an email. So those are a few things I think we need to work with communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. My next question is for Jeannie Moody Novak, and it's the same question. As a board, is this the right question? Yeah. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? How would you suggest to improve communication with P-CCS families and transparency?
Well, first, I believe strongly in data-driven decision-making and metrics. Surveys, I believe these are key to obtaining feedback. They can help us learn why families decide to leave our district. They can also help us learn why some families decide to come to our district. Surveys like those that have recently been sent out to the community regarding the return to face-to-face learning, they inform the board about the intent and the preferences of families at a moment in time. I welcome the opportunity to listen and talk to members of the community, and have found during my campaign, many parents just want to be heard because the issue of the education of their children is so very important at this point in time. I think exploring a method for teachers to anonymously share their concerns with the board would also be very well received, as long as we're able to assure them that their outreach would remain truly anonymous. As far as interactive meetings go, one thing the pandemic did was widely introduce the public and workforces to remote meetings. And I believe they're here to stay. These open and interactive meetings should continue, whether it's YouTube or Zoom. We must continue to keep our stakeholders engaged and invested in the direction of our community schools. The engagement of parents, combined with the improving of transparency behind decision-making and sharing information with families and employees of the district faster, will allow our district to become proactive, which is the direction I believe we need to be heading.
Thank you. My question now is for Cheryl Picard. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices are heard? How would you suggest to improve communication with P-CCS families and transparency?
Well, first of all, I want to say, since I started way back, I think that there has been improvement. Anytime I've ever brought up an issue or needed to contact somebody, I think I've seen a difference between the phone calling and the emails, and I never had a problem getting through. I mean, even to the supervisor eventually. I think, though, that we do need to have timely responses. Sometimes parents don't understand that certain issues, certain concerns need to go through committees, and it takes a little bit longer. And so just sometimes a simple explanation saying, you know, what the time frame to get back with is helpful. I do think, though, but the transparency is a important thing. I think a lot of parents want to know what curriculum they have, what are they doing, what are they studying. I think the communication between, first of all, most important is between the teacher and the parents. And a lot of things can be solved just through the teachers and the parents. I think that that there's also things that parents don't even know that go on that I think they should know, like with just private things with their students, where do their records go? Like they should be able to have access to all that. For an example, I don't even know what year it was, but I had come to find out just through research or whatever, that some of the students' assignments and projects were being kept in a folder and then sent off to RISA. So I found out, well, I questioned about it, and wouldn't have known about it, but the only way I could have stopped it was they told me, well, you have to come in and sign a form so that it wouldn't be. Well, I really didn't want at the time anything being taken or kept and sent somewhere else that I didn't know about. So I went in, had to go in and sign. So, you know, that should have been something that parents should have known about, so they could have had an option. I don't know if that still right now is going on, but I think that's just something they should know. And if they don't mind, that's fine. But I think that's up to each parent where their students' materials or records and all that are going to. So, and possibly now with the internet, that's probably something you could find more now. But that was just an example of transparency that I feel needs to be given. So that's all.
This question is for Christopher Voss. As a Board of Education trustee, how would you ensure that families' voices were heard? How would you suggest to improve communication with P-CCS families and transparency?
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to say that really it's been amazing to see the amount of people that have been, asking questions, that have been communicating to us as, people that are running for the board and for the current board members. I think that this amount of community participation is really important. And I'm very excited to see all the different people that have been, personally reaching out to me as well as to the other candidates. I think that definitely at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a big problem with communication. I mean, this is something that nobody was expecting. Nobody was prepared for this. And I think since then, we've really started to improve in our communication. I think that we need to learn from those mistakes moving forward to make sure that we have proper communication channels, that all parents can receive the information they need when they need it. One way that I plan to kind of listen to parents and to staff and administrators is I promise to visit 2 different schools a month in our district to communicate with teachers and staff and even parents if they wish to come. So that's one thing that I hope to be able to do. As well as I think our district we've done town halls in the past. We've done, I think they used to do something before the pandemic where you would have coffee with Monica Merritt and you were able to communicate with administrators as well as the board members. And I think if we can find different ways like doing town halls and really communicating with our families and listening to what they say, like I said earlier, listening is really, really important. And I think that as we use the internet, as we make these forums and as we make the board meetings live on YouTube and in other means, we're able to hear them and we're able to get it out there so that they can see what they need. I think we definitely as well need to use social media because people have been learning things through social media before they get the email. So maybe we can find a way to use it so that we can get the information to them through the social media and they won't have to wait for the email. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are ready to move on to question number 3, which is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education in general? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board? And so we will first hear a response, a video response from Lauren Christensen.
Question number 3, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education? Is there a particular issue in which motivated you to run for P-CCS school board? So yeah, I think there's several issues that we're facing as a school district, one being the COVID-19 pandemic. As a parent of 2 elementary students, I truly want my kids back in school face-to-face. But I think we need to do so in a strategic and smart way. I know the board just recently approved a plan that the administration put forth for a hybrid model, and I think we're getting there. We're moving in that direction. But I think we need to put our safety and well-being of our students and staff first. That's the utmost important thing, and continue to use the metrics of data and science to help us get there. So, certainly that's a big one. I think there's a lot of students who are flourishing in a virtual environment, but there's a lot of students and parents who are having a very difficult time here. So I think, we also need to be looking at providing support services for those in need during this time, whether they're hybrid or fully remote. And then, the other big issue I think we're facing is we just need to continue our diversity, equity, inclusion work, through continued professional development with our teaching staff, through integrating our more diversity in our curriculum and our hiring practices, trying to shrink those achievement gaps, and really continuing that restorative practices, restorative justice practices, with focusing on healing versus punishment and accountability versus exclusion. So I think collectively all of those things are really going to help create an inclusive environment that supports our students. And then lastly, I think funding. Funding is such a big issue that affects public education in general. So we need to focus on ways and avenues to, I think, improve our state funding and the millages that we approve. So collectively, all of these issues are one reason why, or reasons why I'm running. And then I just think we need more diversity on our board. We need a voice for working parents with young children, and that's missing.
Okay, next we will hear a written response from Patrick Kehoe, and that will be read by Sophia Salim. Again, the question is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
Our biggest current issue is finding a way to educate all students safely while in this pandemic. We are divided as a community as well as a country. We need to come together to find the right solutions using data and science as the bedrock and options to support different points of view. Safety and security needs to be our highest priority, but that includes the mental health and other issues of not being in school. Our second biggest issue is funding on a per pupil basis for general as well as special education. With proper funding, many of our other issues can be addressed and resolved. I was motivated to run for the board because as a citizen attending board meetings for multiple years, watching the entire meeting, I felt that there were open issues and questions that weren't being resolved or explained. Those left gaps in our execution and communications. I've tried to be a voice to close those gaps.
Okay. Now we will move on to hear responses from the candidates that have joined us joined us live. So the first person we will hear from is Jeannie Moody Novak. So the question again is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
So I think we would all agree that ensuring student and staff safety and returning our students back to face-to-face learning as soon as it is safe to do so, I think that's probably a top-tier priority for all of us. But personally, as a parent in this district, I feel that teacher shortages is a real issue facing parents and our students. The Plymouth Canton schools have a lot to offer. We invest in physical infrastructure, but in order to address the issue of teacher shortage, we must be a competitive district so that teachers want to come here and not go to other more competitive schools. And we need to secure these teachers faster during the course of the academic year. Issues facing public education today are also the concerns of the Plymouth Canton schools. Classroom size, poverty, parental involvement or lack thereof, social, emotional, mental health of our students. But I think what finally drove me to run for office, as a parent of students in this district for 24 of the past 26 years that I've lived in Canton, I've seen our district from the perspective of an elementary, middle school, and high school parent, ×2 now. My daughter, she graduated in 2007, and I feel she received a stellar education. She graduated from Canton High School, and she has said to me a number of times that the Plymouth Canton schools prepared her for success in college and in medical school. What I've seen during my son's educational experience concerns me. He's a current sophomore at Salem, and I believe the education he received earlier this spring was the breaking point for me. I was tired of hoping for the best, and I felt I could do better, and that's why I decided to run for the board. It's my opinion that the district has been very reactive and not proactive, and I feel we still are. Slow to make decisions, slow to communicate plans to parents and employees of the district so that they can make decisions that are best for their families. Communication to our stakeholders may just be the area that has come out of the pandemic that may result in greater two-way communication and transparency with parents. As there have never been more invested or more interested in the school board than they are now.
Thank you, Jeannie. Okay, Cheryl, you are up next, and the question is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education in general? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
Okay. First of all, Of course, the COVID is the biggest issue right now because that is affecting school. I do believe kids can be back in school. I'm presently working at a preschool right now, and we are in, and there are other districts. I have nephews who are at school. And it concerns me because, I guess it's not really a concern, but what it does is it does show other parents, other schools, and availability of other schools. Our district has a lot of charter schools that have gone up, and a lot of parents have chosen those schools, have chosen homeschool, have chosen other options. And I guess the good thing would be is that we can learn from that from their experiences and what benefits they had there, or if they choose to come back, we can understand the curriculum, the different types of curriculum and things that they liked about it and didn't like about it. So that is the first question. The second question was, okay, there was 3 of them in there. And
It
just
was
in general.
issues facing public education in general, yes.
Okay, in general, I've seen a lot of changes. My daughter graduated in 2005. I saw a different type of curriculum. I saw her thrive. She's a chemistry professor. I just some of the techniques. As curriculum changed, my sons went through everyday math. I have to say they have totally improved on the math, although there's some concerns. But I actually did homeschool him for a semester in 6th grade because he started in 1st grade with it and it was just too crazy. So he did come back in, and the school worked with me very well on that. And he's fine. He's a nurse. He's successful. And then the other thing was some of the curriculum now, a lot of the group curriculum is not so much teacher centered, but very much group. My last son going through did very well in math, but some of the group things they do, especially in math, he could have gotten homework done, but there was requirements. You have to work in the group, and he could have just been done. He had a lot of activities after school, and he'd come home and say, well, we didn't finish it in group. And so there's some issues there that I think working in groups is good, but there's some types of curriculum that perhaps isn't as necessary in a group. So that was kind of on maybe look at our curriculum. And the other thing was,
Particular issue, which motivated you.
For me, well, yeah, that's a good one. So, okay, that's a good one. So why I ran, all the stuff going on, I started looking on, to see what the situation was running for school board. And I saw that our mission statement was PCC will develop capable, involved citizens who recognize they are citizens of the world, use critical thinking skills, and lifelong learners. So with, all of the things happening in our country, I was a little upset to see that the statement was recognize they're citizens of the world. I understand that we live in the world, but our citizenship is the United States. And that has been defended, protected, people have died for it. And I just think that is something that our students need to understand. They need to have a good history education. They need to understand our documents, our founding documents, and they need to be able to explain them. And they need to know the difference of what it is. I mean, freedom in our country is not the same as the freedom worldwide. To assume that, just look at other countries, what they're experiencing. And so we have a lot here. We have a lot we can share with the world, but I really believe that that is like one of the most important things for the kids to know. Starting from kindergarten up, they should be hearing that all the time in the history education. We've changed from history to social studies. I think we need to have history and true history, good and bad. We learn from our good and bad. We've progressed. Look where we live. Look what we have, instead of degrading it all the time. I think we need to teach that. So that was a biggie for me. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, next we will hear from Christopher Voss, the same question, which is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district and public education generally? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
Thank you. So I really think that the biggest issue that we're facing in our school district right now is definitely uncertainty, whether it has to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, social unrest, social justice, or any of the other issues that we're facing nowadays. I think that, we need to get our students back to school, but we need to do so safely. We need to follow the science. We need to make sure that we do so that we don't have the chance of an outbreak at one of our schools is extremely low. I have a friend who goes to a Catholic school, and she's been in and out of quarantine for a month. She hasn't gotten the virus, luckily. But imagine if we went back without the proper protocols and we had that happen to our students. I think that we need to look at ways to make our education to focus on equality, to make sure that every student, no matter which school they go to, I'm so grateful that the bond was passed. Every student will get the same opportunity, whether you go to West, whether you go to East, whether you go to Central. I feel like there's so many different things that we're facing at one time. And I feel like a lot of the issues we're facing have been issues for a long time, but they've been extremely elevated because of the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that we need someone who has faced uncertainties like this. When 6 months ago, I was expecting to come home from Brazil. I was expecting to go back to Michigan State and do all the things that you do with college, but we had to evacuate everybody from Brazil. We had to make quick decisions. We needed to make difficult decisions. And as a school board member, I'll be ready to make the decisions that are needed to help our students have the best success. I really think the reason that I'm running is because when I was in school, there was a feeling among the students that the district was going downhill. There was that feeling. And that is one of the reasons that I'm running, because I want to change that. I want it to go back to where our students leave our district with pride, knowing that I was given the best opportunity and I'm ready to live in the world. I'm ready to go to college and I'm ready to get my higher education. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that's motivated me to run for school board.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. And then finally for this question, we will hear from Gina Thibault. And the question is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing our school district in public education? Is there a particular issue which motivated you to run for the P-CCS school board?
I think the biggest issues, which I think a lot of us are saying, is definitely COVID and funding. In public education, it's funding. P-CCS receives $8,111 per pupil. In 2016, there was a study by the Michigan Adequacy Study, and it showed the cost to educate a regular K-12 student was $9,590. That was 4 years ago. We have not reached that level at all. Our surrounding districts, like Livonia, for instance, gets $8,500. That'd be $7 million more a year that we would have to spend. Romulus gets $8,900. That'd be $13 million more a year we would have to spend. We have to deal and go to our legislation to change our school funding. The reason I'm running is because of the students. I want to make sure that every student receives an equitable education, that they feel safe, respected, and supported, and are fully prepared for whatever they wish to pursue in their future. Not every student joins a sport or is part of NHS or other clubs or groups. Some need additional learning support, emotional support, or have special needs. But no matter what, every student should have the same opportunity and have the best education that P-CCS can give and feel valued. I also want to make sure our buildings are clean. I addressed the school board back in 2015 at a board meeting regarding the conditions of our building. It really concerns me that 5 years later, we are still having the same conversations about the cleanliness of our schools. Those are just two of the reasons I'm running for school board. Thanks.
Thank you all.
So we are down to the last question. And my question is for Lauren Christensen, whose video we will be playing shortly. So the question is, what would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts become a necessity, what areas would you preserve and where do you feel cuts could be made?
Okay, next question is, what would be the areas you would prioritize prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve? And where do you feel cuts could be made? So, certainly the priority is that funding cuts would not be felt in the classroom. Education certainly extends beyond the four walls of our classrooms. But we don't want to make any cuts that would affect any support services of our students in need or for fostered success and achievement. I think one way to counter that is maybe by deferring other costs and purchases to later dates if we can. But I also think some of that also goes into our funding sources. As I mentioned prior, state funding is such a big deal. But then there's also funding sources that really make an impact for P-CCS, one being the bond. So the community voted yes on the 2020 bond, and that is huge. I mean, that makes improvements in facilities, in technology, in upgrading learning environments, upgrading maybe furniture that's broken down over time and just needs to be replaced. So that's a huge investment that the community voted yes, because it was a no tax increase millage. So I think that's so important. There's another millage on the ballot. It's the Wayne County RESA millage. And again, those dollars can be used more towards classroom impacts, hiring of staff and things that are really felt in the classroom. So I think, again, that's another zero increase millage that I hope that the community can really get behind, because funding is such a big issue for public schools. And, we want to ensure that our kids have the best opportunities available. And this is one way that we can kind of stand behind that.
Okay, my next question is for Patrick Kehoe, and I will read his written response. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve? And where do you think cuts could be made? His answer is, our focus on spending has to be the classroom. That includes the teachers, but also the interventionists, reading specialists, parapros, etc. We've had a balanced budget with an acceptable fund balance over the last 5 years. We should focus on advocating for proper funding before it becomes a crisis and needs budget cuts. We've been lucky as a state that our governor and legislature supported us even in these difficult times. We need to continue to emphasize the importance of that funding. So now my question is for Cheryl Picard. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve? And where do you feel cuts could be made?
First of all, I would preserve the academics, the basics. Any curriculum that supports the basics would, of course, be important, and the teachers and their salaries and keeping good teachers. I have not looked at the budget presently. I don't know what costs are being spent. To make that, actually to make a good decision on that, I would need to see how much we're spending on certain things as far as extra things. What are we spending on that? Is it of value to us? Is it overspending? I know there's some things that we are limited to choose on, just with unions and things like that, that there's certain things we have to spend in certain ways. So that would be something to look into. I know originally we had busing was all involved, and now they outsource that. So I don't know if that would be something we'd have to consider, but that is something that has been considered before. I think that we could also look at our curriculum, and I would not want to give up some of the extra curricular activities that the kids are involved in. Provide a lot more than I think we really see. That it provides community for them. It provides ways to connect, and I would try to find ways that we could apply those to their requirements. For instance, if you're playing a sport, could that account for your credits for physical education? They spend a lot of time. I always kind of thought that was something that you could coordinate both ways. So I also think that we could compare just other things that other districts are spending on and how they're doing it. But that's pretty much. I mean, I would have to really take a look and see what is the cost of things, because sometimes things it is possible to do things cheaper. And also the importance of, I remember sitting in a forum and our concerns were about cabinets and what they look like. And I remember standing up saying, well, those kitchen cabinets look just like mine at home. And guess what? It didn't make a difference on how my kids learned. It didn't make a difference to how they achieved. So we have to evaluate how we're spending things, what really is important to them. And again, just pretty much like everybody said, it's about the teaching, and it's about what the kids have, and that they have access to materials and the resources they need, particularly every individual. So hopefully that's timing wise.
Okay. My next question is for Christopher Voss. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve, and where do you feel cuts could be made?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm very happy that the bond was passed this last spring, because now we can use that money to help build up our infrastructure to make sure that no matter which school you go to, you get that same education, that same feeling that you're in P-CCS. One of the biggest things that I will push for definitely is having a custodian staff that is on the district payroll, because many parents, many teachers and staff have talked about the cleanliness of our districts. And that'll be one of the biggest things that I'll push for, is to budget money so that we can have some custodians on the payroll of the district to take care of our schools. What's the point of doing all these upgrades and fixing all these problems if we're not going to be able to take care of it over time? I think that making cuts is extremely difficult. I hope that we can find different ways to fund everything. I'm open to finding new, unique ideas of ways that we can fund stuff that maybe we haven't thought of in the past. I don't think that if it came down to it and we had to cut something, I would make sure that I would talk with administration, talk with the experts to make sure that this will not affect our students, teachers, or staff. That if we do have to cut something, that it won't be something that will have that big of an impact. Unfortunately, it seems every year we lose more and more money in our budget, and we have to find new ways to be fiscally responsible. Fiscal responsibility is really important in our school district to make sure that we have the money that we need to get our students and our teachers the items and things that they need. Let me read the question one more time to make sure I touched everything. Yeah, but that's what I think. I think, fiscal responsibility, like I say, is one of the three main things that I will definitely focus on as my time as a school board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina, this next question is for you. What would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve, and where do you feel cuts could be made?
We have to prioritize the classrooms and make sure the cuts don't affect the classroom at all. The district's job is to educate the students, and we have to be able to do this and make that our priority. I think it's great that we've passed the enhancement millage and the bond, but it really concerns me that we rely on these to help fund the district. And it concerns me if we don't get those passed in the future, where will we be? I think one of the things is we should be reaching out more to community partners. The Educational Excellence Foundation is one that helps supports the teachers and students in the district. We have many community partners that want to help out. And I think we need to use those resources a little bit more. I've been attending the Finance and Operations Subcommittee meetings, and it's really informative. You see the bid process, and I do think the district is doing well in bidding out jobs and the spending of the money. So it's really helpful to attend those. Any areas that doesn't directly connect to the classroom is where would we have to look at to do cuts if we end up needing them. Thank you.
Thank you. This last question is for Jeannie Moody Novak. And the question is, what would be the areas you would prioritize spending in our budget? In order to balance the budget, if cuts became a necessity, what areas would you preserve, and where do you feel cuts could be made?
Since the goal is to deliver the very best educational experience and opportunities to our students and our community, I feel teachers and human resources are my priority. I think the hiring, retention, and compensation of teachers is at the core of this priority. In reviewing the current budget, I've seen how little is allocated for mental health. There's actually a larger allocation going to robotics than there is to students' social emotional well-being. So I believe we must invest in high quality programming for students as it relates to their mental and emotional health. This is and has been a very important subject for years, and it's mostly overlooked and often underfunded. I also feel professional development is very important, including implicit bias training, which is very important at this time. And another area I think could be prioritized is additional vocational training for students. If and when cuts are necessary, I think it's important to have an excellent handle on the district finances. I consider fiscal management and income projections one of my strongest skill sets. There are obvious first-tier items, things like hiring freezes, not replacing teachers if cuts are needed, and then this allows fiscal change without adding to the budget. But you balance this by looking and monitoring enrollment numbers versus teachers retiring and leaving the district. Removing funding for programs should be a last resort after you do other things like delay the ordering of new textbooks and new equipment, reviewing and discontinuing the need for temporary staffing, reviewing all contractual services and expenditures, and finally reviewing all positions to see if they can be reallocated or repurposed. Growing up in Flint taught me a lot about where cuts should be made and should not be made. And these are the things I would prioritize if I were elected.
I want to thank all of you for giving us your time today, for making that effort to connect with our P-CCS families and caregivers of all of our P-CCS students. I really feel like this was a very valuable time where I know, I think I speak on behalf of our parent council board that it was really great to get to know you and to just have this more, intimate look at the details of at our board candidates. So I want to thank you for giving up your time this evening. I want to just let everyone know that, again, we have our Board of Education candidates who are running for the partial term, which is ends up being 2 years of a 4-year term for the seat. So Anupam Chugsidhu, as well as Sebastian Ostertag, who we heard from earlier. I want to thank both of them, Anupam for submitting her written responses, Sebastian for being here and sharing his time. And our last group of candidates who you saw, there are 3 seats available, and it is, let's see, 10 of them are going to be running for those 3 seats. So, take a good look, let your neighbors know. They're able to watch this on our P-CCS official YouTube channel. They're welcome to watch back, take a look at it in more detail. So I also want to thank Lauren Christensen for submitting her video responses, for current member Patrick Kehoe, who submitted written responses. And very much so I want to thank Mr. Christopher Voss, Gina Tebow, Jeannie Moody Novak, Cheryl Picard, for being here with us tonight and spending this time. So thank you very much. It was very great to get to know you a little better than we have. I want to let our viewers know that in our minutes, I have collected some of our candidates' sites, as well as Facebook page and different biographical pages that they have submitted, and we'll put those in our parent council minutes so that you can take a look at those and take a look at some more details of each of the candidates and kind of weigh your options there. I also want to thank very much, as well as introduce our P-CCS Director of Marketing and Communications, which is Nick Brandon. So we want to thank you for being here, Nick, and running the whole technological show here. Any details you want to share with us or anything that you want to say on behalf?
Just want to thank everyone for taking the time tonight to better inform our community about this important election ahead. And this video will remain on the official P-CCS YouTube channel, so people can check it out as an archive. And really, I really want to thank the P-CCS Parent Council for everything that you've done to help the school district, particularly in the last few months during this pandemic. I think the Parent Council has done a great job of staying aligned with the district and helping us to produce our town halls and helping to produce special events like the one we just experienced. So thank you, President Hart and the Parent Council, and look forward to continued good work from the council moving forward.
I want to echo that thank you as well. Our Vice President, Pam Cornell Allen, our corresponding secretary, Sophia Salim, our membership coordinator, as well as recording secretary as of tonight, Andrea Schultz, who did the recording secretary duties tonight. So I want to thank this board. You're a fabulous group of board members and friends. So I really thank you. Just best parent council board that I could ask for. So thank you very much. I want to also just kind of reiterate that we are leaving open our recording secretary position for right now. So if you would like to submit a fellow parent or yourself to be considered for elections, we're leaving that position open until we have a candidate or multiple candidates to run for that election, and we'll leave it open until we get that. And if you're interested in becoming involved in our group, it's a fabulous group, and we really focus on communicating with our bridging the communication between P-CCS families and our school district. So thank you very much. Tentatively, we have our next parent council meeting November 15th. That's a tentative date, and we will be sending out details and as well as minutes from this meeting as well. So thank you very much, and everyone have a nice
President Hart, if I could just correct you, I think it's November 19th.
Oh my goodness, you're so right.
Is Sunday.
Right,
Yep.
November
No
15th
problem.
is the Sunday. Yes, we've been over this detail today, sorry. November 19th, which is a Thursday from 5 to 7. So we're gonna routinely be doing our meetings on Thursday nights, not Sundays. Thank you very much, Mr. Brandon. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.